everyone, so here is my long-awaited review on the Tim Holtz Distress markers that I got not too long ago, which I'm sure almost everyone got not too long ago. Everyone kind of went a little nuts about these new things. So first off, we'll do just a quick info. They're a set of 36 markers plus white, making it 37. White is kind of considered separate. I'll get into that in a minute. You can buy it as a set, which averages in price, I know it's well over $100, but for 36 markers, that's not bad. Individually, the average price is about $349 US, which again isn't bad. These are not refillable. I'm just gonna get that out of the way right then and there, because they are the same colors, similar color. Oh, I'll get to that in a minute too. Because they are the same colors as the Distress ink pads, like these ones. Also by Tim Holtz and Ranger. People were wondering if they could use the ink refills for these to refill your markers. No, you cannot. People actually emailed Tim Holtz and he replied, and because I'm not sure if it was on their site or not, but you can't because they are a different ink formulation. Maybe down the road they'll come out with little ink refills for them, but really, usually by the time, if you've used up an entire marker like this, like it's dry, like the brush nib would probably be split and frayed and who knows what. So it'd be time to buy a new one. And when they're only an average, obviously, of $350, that's not a huge deal. And these will probably last like a really, really long time. I've had other markers, like my little Stampin' Up! Markers. I've had these for 5 or 6 years, roughly, maybe longer. So I'm expecting these to last for a very long time. Obviously, they're going to be good quality. Usually everything that Ranger and Tim Holtz puts out is of highest quality. So, yeah, that's pretty much all of that. Oh, if you buy them as a set, they come in like a tube to store, which would be kind of awesome. I got mine from allotscraps.com. As always, links will be below. They didn't have the sets. They were just selling them individually, so I just picked up them that way. Storage-wise, you are going to need to store them flat, aka horizontally. Because these are water-based. Unlike Copic markers, alcohol-based markers can be stored either way. Water-based markers need to be stored flat so that the ink can flow to both ends. If you store them vertically, the ink is going to shift down and kind of, you know, be at one end, and then when you go to use one of the other ends, the end that is pointing up, it's not going to work as well. So just an FYI, I just keep mine stored in one of these flat little drawer sets that I got from Walmart, and they, with a little bit of shoving, I can fit the entire set in one drawer, which is awesome. So yeah, all the Distress markers have a dual tip. They've got the nice size brush nib on one end, and then the other end on all the colors, it's a plastic nib, so you can write with it. Do I have a little scrap here? Like a really fine writing nib, just like so, and they purposely made it plastic and not the felt tip so that it would last longer. So that's great. The only difference being the white one, but again, I'll get into the white one because it is separate. It's not the same as all these colors. Okay, now for the Distress markers themselves, what I'd kind of referred to earlier, even though they're in the same colors as the ink pads, like same names, similar colors, they are not exactly the same. I cannot do swatches. If you Google it, I'm sure there's tons of people that have already done swatches, like on their blogs, showing the markers next to the ink pads, next to the paints and whatever. There's, you know, a whole freaking color range with and line with the Tim Holtz Ranger Distress inks. But yeah, these colors, they're not exactly the same. It says right on the site they coordinate with the Distress inks, aka they are not the exact same. So if you scribble this onto a piece of cardstock, and this is Forest Moss, if you scribble it onto cardstock and you had the Forest Moss Distress ink and you stamped it right beside it, they'd be similar, they would not be an exact match, which for some people, that's going to bother them. Someone like me, that is not a drawback in any way, shape, or form. That doesn't bother me. I knew they were coordinating when I bought them, and I don't have very many Distress inks. Like, if you guys watch my blog and or watch my videos and have been subscribed to my blog for some time, you know, like, I don't do a whole lot of like distressing, sponging, that kind of stuff. I pretty much use mostly line images and color them, so that's not a drawback. Another thing that other people have mentioned is that the ink colors are not the exact same as the lids. That is true, they're not. Again, for me, that's not a drawback because I'm used to that, because this is plastic and I'm coloring on paper. I don't expect a manufacturer to get this piece of plastic to the exact same color as how it's going to come out on paper. That just, obviously they worked their hardest to get it as close as possible. What I did to combat that is I grabbed my watercolor paper that I plan on using these with. I scribbled every single marker onto it, and then the last 2/3 of it I watercolored, so I've got the full saturation on the left side, then the watercolored version on the right, and then I labeled every single one. This literally took me like 10 minutes, not very long at all. And I cut it down on purpose to fit in the top of my little drawer. So when I pull out my markers, I've got my little swatch piece of all my colors, so then that way I go by this and not by the lids. Just, it's a way to combat it. Use whatever it is you plan on using. I use the watercolor paper, like I said, that I plan on watercoloring with. Use whatever cardstock you plan on using. So yeah, that in a nutshell is these markers. Okay, so while I'm on the vein of all of this, there is also, of course, 2 watercolor brushes that were released as well. There is a wide one, like so, and then a fine one. The fine one averages around $10 US. They have their own little built-in water reservoir that you unscrew like so, fill up with water. It's got the little cap on here. Do not remove this. It has directions on the packaging how to fill it. You actually submerge it in water, squeeze it, and then suck the water into it. Do not remove that, because that keeps it from getting everywhere. So just a quick little FYI. This little fine one I love. This is great. Worth every penny. I would purchase actually a second one if I could. I probably will in the near future. The wide one, if you're into, again, larger projects and mixed media, you do the Tim Holtz style, you know, all that kind of stuff, this would be really cool. It's got the wide flat end to it, but then what you can also do is take that piece off, and then you've got this huge soft watercolor brush, so you could do a great big area with this thing. So this is actually really cool. And then when you're done with it, just be careful. It works easier when the ends are wet to get that back on there, and then you've got your flat little, well, big brush again. So I've never seen one like this. This was actually really neat. So there's that one, and this one averages around $13 US. So those, and then finally, they also released the Inkssentials specialty stamping paper. This is matte coated cardstock, smooth finish. There is no weight, I don't think, anywhere on the package saying what it is. I am guessing it's around, it feels like about an 80-pound, like it's not super heavy weight. Yeah, that's kind of my guess, 80-90 pound max. It's not a very heavy weight. It is a coated cardstock, and that's why it took me so long to do this review, because I've been working with it and fiddling with it, and personally, I'm not a fan. I don't like it, but I don't like coated cardstock to begin with. So if you really like inking up your stamps, let me just grab a little tiny one with a big block, but if you really like using more solid image stamps and inking them up with markers, or even just ink pads, like regular ink pads you like, and using larger stamps, you don't do the line images like I do, this is actually really cool. It takes ink wonderfully. You get a really neat saturated image with it. But again, for me, because I use like little line images that I like to color in, this is really, I just find this to be really frustrating. If you want to use the Inkssentials paper for line images to color in, FYI, you need to use either StazOn ink or another permanent solvent-based ink. Ranger Archival, I guess, works very, very well with this. That's the one Tim Holtz recommends. I don't have it, so I can't compare it, and I couldn't get it before I did this review. But StazOn does work. Every other black ink I've tried smears. Memento Tuxedo Black smeared, Palette Noir smeared, even StazOn smeared. Because again, it's a coated cardstock. You have to be really, really careful when you're stamping, because it's got like a very smooth finish. You need to make sure you're going straight up and down. If you so much as move it a little bit, it smears immediately. Like, it's very finicky cardstock. So that's not a big issue when you're doing more solid images, like watercoloring, florals, different things like that. But if you're trying to get a line image and you want to get it perfect, it gets to be iffy. Also the distress inks, like the black soot, it smeared as well. Even when they're heat set, all these inks smeared. The only one that I could get not to smear with water was the StazOn. So personally, not a fan of it. Oh, FYI, it's $7.99 for a package, and you get 10 sheets in a pack. So it's very expensive for what it is, in my opinion. Yeah, so that's why I'm just not a fan. If it was cheaper, I'd probably try a little harder to work with it and like it, because I'd keep repurchasing it, but I probably will not repurchase it after, if I actually end up using this up. Because yeah, it's just not my sort of thing. And like I said though, it works great if you're wanting to stamp a more solid image. These are just stamps from my butterfly stamp set, FYI. We'll just get right into this whole thing. Like I said, you can ink up the stamps with the markers themselves. This is one of the really neat things about these markers, is you do not have to work light to dark like you normally have to do with any other marker I've used. When you're inking up stamps, you go light to dark because you can ruin your lighter markers if you pick up darker ink. However, with these, you don't have to do that. Like, you can start with a little bit of dark ink. You can go right in with a lighter color. So I started off with this darker purple. That was Dusty Concord. This is Tumbled Glass. You can go right over it with a lighter marker. They blend together right on the stamp, which is really cool. And then you can just scribble off any of the remaining color just onto a scrap of paper, and then keep going. Like, here's another even lighter color, this pink again. Kind of blends those together. Scribble off the pink, or off the purple, and the nib is fine. So that's really, really cool that you can get kind of effects like that with these. And again, you don't have to work super, super quickly with these. You can take your time. It's fine. Like, you know, I could even leave this, come back to it later if I wanted to. All you got to do is huff on it. Anyone who's inked with markers understands this concept. It's just blowing a little bit of hot breath. You're not spitting on it or spraying it or anything else. Just like so. And then you can stamp it. So really, really cool. There we go. For this technique, that's where this Inkssentials paper is awesome, because you get just a really gorgeous stamped image with this cardstock. So if this is something that you're into, you'll probably love this cardstock. And then obviously you can get a second generation and even a third generation. And again, like, the colors aren't muddy in any way. There's a fourth even. So that's another sort of unique thing with these markers, is the colors don't get muddy. They keep their own color. It's really cool. You can even then take your little watercolor brush and kind of watercolor it a little bit if you want. Again, that's not something I'm into. I just find it makes a mess. I'm not into it. So, but for those that are, that's how you can do it. It's really, really cool. There's all sorts of different effects. I'm not going to get into the effects. That's already, this video is going to be very, very long. So that's why I'm not going to do that. However, what I prefer to do with this stuff is to do actual watercoloring with actual watercolor paper. The watercolor paper I use is Strathmore's Watercolor Cold Press 140 pound watercolor paper. It's very heavyweight. This comes in a 9 by 12 inch coil bound set. You get, like, at Michael's, it's in that section. I usually wait till they do the 40% off all of the coil bound artist papers, or use a coupon, whatever. I can't remember how much it was. It's not cheap. but you get like obviously large sheets, and when you're doing cards, a huge sheet will last, you know, you cut it down. So that's what I use. And then I use the Versafine Onyx Black ink by Sukaneko. This stuff does not work. The Versafine does not work on the Inkssentials stamping paper because it is not meant for coated cardstocks. It does smear like the other ones, but it does work. This stuff works great on watercolor paper. So that's kind of my preferred watercoloring ink of choice. So I'll ink up my large butterfly stamp. And then stamp it onto the watercolor paper. Just good pressure. There we go. I'm going to heat set this really quickly. You can let it air dry. It doesn't take very long, but I'm just going to heat set it to double check and make sure it's fully dry. Alrighty, so it's fully dried. Now this is what I love these markers for, is you can just take your marker. You can do one of two things. You can either color directly onto the image, like so, or you can also scribble it onto a non-porous surface. So this is like the Tim Holtz little craft mat. You can use an acrylic block, a piece of plastic, a CD case, whatever. Either one will work. So either way you can use, and then I also have a scrap piece of paper towel, just so that if this gets too wet, I can scribble it onto there. So either method works wonderfully. You get gorgeous color with these. So just like that, or you can pick up the color with the water brush and color it that way. Whatever method you prefer. You can also let's do a yellow. Another thing you can do is scribble on two different colors like that, and then combine them, and then color that way. So I used the yellow and the blue and made a green. So that's another thing you can do. Really, really awesome. Now if you had done it this way, like done a bit of yellow here, do a little bit of blue here, you can combine them this way and they will turn a green. You can see the yellow kind of keeps some of its integrity underneath. But yeah, there's just different things you can do with this. Like I love the watercolor effect you get with this. It's really, really nice. I'm not going to compare these to any other markers because I do not have any other watercolor markers. The only other markers I have are the Stampin' Up! Ones. They aren't meant for watercoloring in any way. You can, you just need to scribble them onto like a sheet like that. In my opinion, that's what works better. Pick it up, color with it, whatever. But yeah, they're just, it's kind of like comparing apples to oranges in a way. Yeah, I honestly, if I was asked which I prefer when it comes to it, I actually do prefer the Ranger ones. I'm going to be using these. Hopefully you guys will start seeing them in little videos and stuff. I still love my Copics. Again, I'm not comparing these to Copics. It's apples to oranges. They're a completely different thing. These are water-based. Copics are alcohol-based. Different methods of coloring. And if you guys, again, if you watch my videos and read my blog for any length of time, you know I like having lots of options. I really love to color. So for me, I'm not going to choose one or the other. I've got all kinds of different types of mediums for coloring and I love them all. It just depends on my mood and what I do. But overall, my opinion of these is that they are great. It's a really good, once I actually did the swatches of them, they have a really good color range. Hopefully maybe down the road they'll do some more colors. There we go. I'd like to see like some more richer browns. But other than that, like really they do have quite a lot of good colors. And the vintage photo one is actually a really nice brown. So these are really great. Oh, and like I said, the white, I've already kind of done a little bit of scribbling with it. That's why. The white is separate because obviously you're not going to kind of really watercolor with it on white, like white on white defeats the purpose. But what it does do is it shows up on dark cardstock, which is just really cool. Just, it looks neat, just scribbling it. Like, goes on clear, dries to kind of like a white finish. You can ink it up like you do the other stamps, or the other markers with stamps, is you can scribble on a stamp just like so, puff on it to moisten it, stamp it, and as it dries, like, how cool is that, really? Like, really cool. Get all my stuff out of the way so I can focus. So that's a really neat effect. I can see myself using this more like at Halloween, like to do like a spiderweb stamp on the black. How cool would that be? So that's really neat. Another thing you can kind of do is you can scribble a color onto your non-porous surface, scribble some of the white onto your non-porous surface, and then you can mix them together. So you get kind of more of a pastel effect to a degree. Yeah, it just looks like that. You can also take the white and color over top of what you've watercolored, and then as it dries it just gives a lighter effect. I'm sure there's more you can do with it. Again, just Google like Tim Holtz and that, because obviously he's really awesome at what he does and has shown like all different kinds of techniques. But yeah, this video has gone on for a ridiculous long amount of time. All in all, I give them 2 thumbs up. Love them. If you're into these different techniques or you want to try watercoloring, these are great. And you can get, you know, you can just pick up a couple at a time if you want it, or go all out, get the whole set, whatever works for you. I really enjoy them. I love the colors they give. I love watercoloring with them, so I'm glad I bought them. And yeah, that's... if you're still watching this at this point after over 20 minutes, this is ridiculous. But I can't really say anything bad about these markers. Like, that's my opinion. And thank you all so much for watching, and thank you all so much if you're still watching after this long of a video. And as always, there'll be links to everything except for the watercolor paper, because like I said, I got that at Michael's. Yeah, I will see you guys next time. Bye!